A mother from North Carolina is sharing a heartbreaking experience she endured at a Charlotte hospital where she was told that her newborn baby had died. However, days later, LaShonda Hunter was informed that her baby was alive and improving, only to be told again that it was all a mistake. LaShonda's daughter, Legacy, was born February of 2022 and was quickly admitted to Novant Health Presbyterian Medical Center due to breathing problems, jaundice, and an elevated white blood cell count. Despite these serious concerns, Hunter says that doctors initially reassured her that Legacy was responding well to treatment. Then she received the devastating news that her baby had died. LaShonda and civil rights activist John Barnett are here both to discuss this lawsuit that they have filed regarding this ordeal. LaShonda, thank you for joining us. I cannot imagine how you are feeling right now, but we appreciate you for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
What made you decide to speak publicly about what had happened to you and your daughter?
Today makes 4 years that my daughter was born. Today is actually her birthday.
Mm.
And over the 4 years, the hospital has made me feel silent. I have reached out, I have asked for investigations, I have asked for proof, I have asked for all kinds of things, and they have ignored me numerous times. And I just felt like they were trying to silence me, and it was no or never.
So, walk us through that moment when doctors told you that your baby had died.
I was in the hospital. I just had her. They told me the first 72 hours were critical. She breezed through the 72 hours doing amazing.
Mm.
On day four, I was released from the hospital. I went down to the NICU. They told me they thought she had developed a infection. I told them to do everything they could, discuss the plan of treatment. I went home. On day five, they called me and said, "Hey, we don't think she's going to make it through the night." I told them that she was. I'm God fearing, and that
Mm.
she's going to be fine. Do everything you're supposed to do. I was stalking my chart to make sure that everything was done correctly. The next day, she made it through. She was fine. I got a text from a nurse the next morning, and they said, I just laid eyes on Legacy. She's looks amazing. The same time, the next night, they called me again and said that Legacy would not make it through the night. And I
Mm.
said, y'all can't keep calling me, telling me this. Like, she's going to be fine. About 5, 10 minutes later, they called me back and said she had passed. I didn't understand it. I couldn't grasp what they were saying. I was just in shock. So I immediately grabbed my phone to see if she was due for blood treatment and to see if they did the blood and given her antibiotics. By the time I got to the phone, within minutes, they had wiped her completely from my chart. Picture
Wow.
gone, file gone, everything.
And so then you were later told that your daughter was actually alive and improving?
Yes. The next day I went to the hospital to see the baby that they said was my daughter's. And they put me in a closet, a dark closet with some family members and friends. And we didn't know who the baby was. We didn't know what the baby looked like. It was completely dark in there. It was only a slight light from the hallway shining in. So I went home and prepared for the funeral, because I entrusted the hospital thinking they were truthful.
Mm.
Um, on 3 days later, I get a phone call from a doctor that was treating my daughter that I had spoke to several times, Dr. K, and he called me. He was so excited. He said, "Miss Hunter, I'm calling you. This is Dr. K. I'm calling you to give you an update on Legacy." And I said,
Mhm.
"Okay." And he said, "She's doing amazing." He said that her jaundice was looking better. They were going to take her off of that light and put her on another light. Her white blood cells was looking better, which means the antibiotic was working, and
Mm.
that her breathing was doing better, and they were going to switch the tubes out. I just was in shock. And my assistant said, she said, "I thought that you said her baby was dead." And he says, "Is this Miss Hunter?" And I said, "Yes." And then he just hung the phone up.
So then to be told again that this was a mistake, what kind of emotional damage does that do to you, Mom?
So I called numerous times after he hung up. I mean, numerous times. And for hours. They would put me on hold and hang up. They would set hold on and hang up. And the NICU is a direct number. It's not like go through the hospital and be transferred here and there. They were putting me on hold and hanging up and would not answer the phones. Hours and hours and hours later, the doctor that pronounced my child deceased that night called me and said that she had made a mistake by calling me. And I said, "You didn't call me, Dr. K did." She said, "No, it was me." I said, "No, it wasn't. I know who I spoke with." And she said, "Well, your name was on another chart and we made a mistake." And I said, "Well, I want to see the baby that you're talking about then. If you made a mistake, I want to see that baby." She said, "If you come to the hospital, I'll call security and have you arrested."
John, let's bring you into the conversation. You're a civil rights activist. When you first heard LaShonda's story, what made you feel like this was not just medical negligence, but a civil rights issue?
Well, the first thing I thought it was bizarre, and I had to, really ask for a lot of information. Some of that information she shared with me was, and I don't know if she told you, Miss LaShonda said she didn't think she could have children.
Hmm.
This was her, you know, she called the baby's called Legacy, but she didn't think she could have baby. She found out she was pregnant on a whim, and when she found out, she was extremely excited. So there's about 7 red flags. I only give you 3. Number one, when we found out the civil rights violations, when she showed me the picture of the baby, because the baby is a baby. I don't even think it's a black baby, but the baby has genitals. And Miss Hunter has a whole history of ultrasounds of a female baby, a little baby girl. She has everything. She has all the information, and it's a girl. It was a girl. So to have a baby being taken to the funeral home, and they say, "Hey, this is a little boy," it was not only troubling. It just made me think about something in like the 1800s.
Hmm.
And I think the most shocking thing is that the lawyer that took this case, and we got to give her a shout out, the lawyer that took this white female, she doesn't even do civil cases like this. I think she's in the finances. She knew that something was wrong, and she took it upon herself to file a civil case with this particular case. And what's interesting is that Miss Hunter was running out of time. And I was telling Miss Hunter about biblical stories where people are trapped, like Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. At the last minute, they were saved. And we only had like less than 6 days to get a new lawyer in place. Shout out to my personal attorney, Miss Pamela Hunter. She was able to accept this case. And on the day of our press conference about 2 weeks ago, 1 hour before the press conference, we were able to refile this lawsuit. And so now this is the kicker. This is the third bullet. Adrian Health has not responded. They just sent this message out, very vague, like we take care of our patients. That was it. No details, no information, just a very blank statement. And my attorney, Hunter, had said, "John, you need to call your friend, Attorney Ben Crump, because hospitals have deep pockets." I want to make sure I let this be known on your show. They have deep pockets, and they ignore demand letters from lawyers, and sometimes they ignore lawsuits. She said, "This is a case for Attorney Ben Crump, but I'm going to do the best I can." And so knowing that they left that message or sent that message out to the media, it's almost like, we don't care. And all we're asking is to be transparent. Where's this baby at? Where did the baby come from? And in closing, I'll say this. Miss Hunter was hesitant to bury the baby boy, because she don't know who baby it is. So it took about a month to bury the baby. So we're going to continue through the efforts of Mr. Roland Martin. He's helped me so many times, and I got to give him 3 seconds. He's helped me with Shankrella Robinson case. Last month, he supported me with the Amazon shooting case. That guy now is in jail for attempted murder, thanks to your show. And so Mr. Martin, I hate to get all these cases and bring them to his office, but they just happen to be in the Charlotte area. The Amazon shooting case is near Charlotte. Shankrella Robinson, may she rest in peace. And now this case. And I'm like, I don't want to bother Roland Martin's show again. But this case, she's gone viral on TikTok and other areas. Attorney Ben Crump has shared it on his page. But we have to break the backs of these hospitals, because she does not know where her baby is. And this is we're doing an interview on a day she should be mourning and having reflections. This is her birthday. So this is her birthday gift, being on your show today, and hopefully we get some justice. We have filed in civil court, and we're looking forward to our day in court, and we're going to continue to expose Novant for what they've been doing.
Let's bring in our panel for tonight. We have Michael Imhotep, a host for the African History Network show in Detroit. Candace Kelly, a legal analyst and host, Not All Hood in South Orange, New Jersey. And Matt Manning, a civil rights attorney from Corpus Christi, Texas. I want to thank you all for being here. Michael, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts about this case? Do you have any questions?
Yeah, a couple questions. First, my heart goes out to LaShonda and your family, because I know what it's like to have a baby to die in the hospital, because that happened to me and my former fiance back in 2013. So my heart goes out to you. So first question I have, LaShonda, because I know it was devastating for both of us. First question to you is, how are you doing now?
I don't really know how to answer that question because my baby
Yes.
is not home.
Yeah.
And until she gets home, I don't think I'll ever be 100%. I too buried a child in 99.
Right.
So I know what it is to feel the loss of a baby, to be in a hospital and leave out the hospital without your child after giving birth. I know what it's like to have a funeral service and bury. I went through that whole process. I know the feeling you
So
have.
did we. Yes.
I have never gotten that feeling with Legacy. When I say never got that feeling with Legacy from day one. I never felt like she was gone.
And to the attorney that's on the line, I appreciate you all being on. It's about, most time I ask people for three smoking flags, right, smoking guns rather, to give to the attorney that I work with nationally.
Right.
She got about 9. I mean, let me give you one for free. She did a DNA on the baby that she buried, and it was inconclusive.
Jesus.
She did the nails
Wow.
and the skin. She did the nails and the skin, and it came back inconclusive.
Right. And just a quick follow-up question, if I could. LaShonda, so my former fiance, ex-fiance, she had to go through therapy because of what happened. I probably should have gone through therapy, but I didn't. So I'm just asking you, have you been through any type of therapy to try to deal with what happened to you?
I have the first year and probably 3 months I denied therapy. I denied it because I was fighting a war by myself. I felt like I knew what I was talking about, but I just didn't know how to convey it. And they were holding my daughter's records. I didn't have her records for a year and 3 months.
Wow.
So I didn't get her records until May of the following year. So once I got the records and saw it in black and white and saw that she was still being treated after her day of death, way after her day of death, then I knew it was like a relief. So then I accepted therapy because I had to learn how to deal with knowing that my child was out here.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Candace Kelly, an attorney, what's coming up for you?
So, first of all, I am glad that you continue to contact the show, the Roland Martin Show, because this is how you get your voice out there and the help that you have received so far. So thank you for that. And also just my condolences to you in terms of this whole process and where you are now. You still feel like Legacy could potentially still be alive. I know that there was a question in and around the DNA, which you partly answered, but I'm wondering, what DNA did they compare samples wise? Did they get DNA that was authorized from you, or did they pull that from something that was already on record? How did that DNA comparison even happen?
So once we realized that the baby that was at the funeral home was a boy, my attorney at the time contacted the hospital and said, "Hey, you guys got to do an investigation. Something is going on. This is a boy," and they ignored me. So I said, "Well, what do I do?" And she said, "Well, The only other thing that I can think of is if we take a DNA test. So I paid out of my pocket for a
That's right.
private DNA testing. And they came, at first they wanted the funeral home to do the, pick up the DNA testing, and the funeral home declined. And my attorney at the time also said she didn't want to do it because she didn't want the chain to be messed up, and they said something else happened. So they actually came out, they swabbed me, and they received DNA from the baby that was at the funeral home, and it came back inconclusive.
And was there a second test at all? Because different reports, as we know online, have said different things.
Yes, there was a second test, but the thing about that is I never took another DNA. They never grabbed any more DNA from the baby. I didn't sign for anybody to do another DNA test. So I don't know where that DNA came from. I don't know where the test came from. I just received DNA test saying, hey, it's a 99.9% is your baby. And I never took another DNA. I never signed for another DNA. And if you use the same DNA, if it came back inconclusive the first time, how could it possibly come back positive the second time?
And
Thank you for clearing that up.
and I also want to add now. I talked about those 8 to 9 smoking guns. This is number 4, number 5. He does the DNA test, comes back inconclusive. The lawyer tells the hospital, hey, my client is doing a DNA test, so y'all be on standby. They initiate some actions themselves, and that DNA report comes back without her knowing it, for the most part. This is the tricky thing. DNA, every time they do a DNA testing, there's a different filing number. The second test, DNA test, was the same number. They just changed inconclusive to positive match without her consent. So it gets better. So Miss Hunter calls the DNA office, say, hey, do y'all supposed to have the same reference number on here? Same medical filing number? They said, the lady says, no. Every test has a different number, even if they do multiple tests.
Wow.
And I haven't given you the other 4 bullets. It gets better. It gets worse, brother. Very interesting. It's one of my most bizarre cases. I've been doing civil rights 17 years. It's bizarre. I am so on edge, waking up at night trying to figure out how are they gonna respond to this in court?
Right.
So when you give condolences, I heard you earlier, I appreciate that. I had to be mindful when I first sat down with Miss Hunter. I can't say, rest in peace to your baby, because somebody might be walking around with the baby at a grocery store. Whole Foods. So it's challenging. And what I was thinking, I was just thinking and pondering, maybe if they told the truth, then they got to go get the baby from the other person, and maybe they're going to have a double lawsuit. I don't know what they're thinking. They haven't met with us. I put a request in. Ms. Hunter put a request in. The lawyer that had her case first, she's sick. So she couldn't do anymore. And so they didn't respond to the lawyer's letters, didn't respond to the demand letters. And number 6, smoking gun. There was some documentation that this lawyer, she has a white female lawyer at first. And the second lawyer is a black female lawyer, my lovely friend, Miss Attorney Pamela Hunter. This is the kicker, y'all. In some notes that the lawyer gave us, and Miss Hunter has it, it says she has a white female attorney and she's an uneducated black woman. Uneducated black female, and she has a white attorney. Miss Hunter has a BS degree. She's far from being uneducated. And these are notes that we have that I'm going to be using at our next press conference. Unbelievable. Uneducated black woman. That's when I got mad and took the case. And her bishop, Kevin Long, shout out to Bishop Kevin Long, he's the one that said, call John Barnett. But that's what really got me when they said uneducated black woman. That got me. I don't even want to say how mad I was. That's when I just went all out. We did a press conference 2 weeks ago in front of the hospital. And my mentor, Reverend Sharpton, said, do the press conference where the pain is. And They've yet to respond. We were out there with all the stations. We was out there with all the stations in Charlotte. They've yet to respond. We was on their front door in front of Novant, and nobody came outside. No security. Nobody from personnel. Nobody from patients' rights. Nobody. They are literally have been put on blast, and I'm gonna continue to do that. I'm relentless in reference to the work we do, and we definitely gonna get some answers.
Matt, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Let me first also offer my condolences and ask a question where I may have missed something. So I know you said you had your daughter's records. What do the records show about the continuing treatment? And I ask that because I do this work. I work in a personal injury firm, right? So the first question I had was obviously negligent infliction of emotional distress, all the things related to the mishandling of the records, and then the survival claim, which basically means if you have a family member that passes, you can continue on the personal injury claim that they would have had. So I'm particularly interested in the medical malpractice angle. What have the records shown, and what have you learned about the treatment she got after the point you were notified that she'd passed? Because that to me seems to be pretty seminal to the case.
Well, she was continuing. They in her files they showed that on February 25th they flushed her IV and took it out. Discontinued it, and that particular IV was for her antibiotics. It shows what it was used for, what the size of it was, how it was placed, and everything. It was placed on the 15th and it was taken out on the 25th, which coincides with what the doctor said when he told me that her antibiotics were working. That it looks her red blood cells was going, her white blood cells were going back up. So that coincides with what the doctor was saying. They also changed her ETT tube. I keep saying tube, but it's ETT on the 25th of February that was placed on the 13th, the day that she was actually born. They took that out. So they were still doing things to her per her records on the 25th of February. Now, what the odd thing about that is I went up to the hospital on the 25th of February, not even knowing this. And I asked for the records for my daughter and myself. And they said, the lady told me, she said, I can give you your records, but your chart, somebody's in her chart and I'm blocked from it.
That's right.
So technically I looked it up by law. After a patient is deceased, they have so many hours, and it's less than 24 hours, but so many hours to finish the chart, and then it's closed. But this is days later. The 19th and the 25th is days later.
Yeah. Yeah. And, the medical records surely are going to show who not only had access to them, but who may have manipulated them, which I'm sure your lawyer is already looking at. I have a case currently right now where I have an entry where a nurse declined to give a person some insulin and they died. So the point is, those records are going to be very telling. And I have no doubt that when you're in front of 12 people, they will see the enormity of this mess up by the hospital, this tragedy, and will do the right thing for you. But I think that's going to be a big element of it is the medical malpractice part, because they're not going to be able to account, or they at least have not accounted yet for what they were doing all this time after they told you that she was deceased. And I think a jury is going to be very interested in that and is going to be very angry at the hospital for what they find there, because that's likely where there's malfeasance, among other places, obviously. So I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm sorry that you're in this position.
Thank you. The records speak volumes. I definitely agree with you on that. They're still not the complete records. The records are supposed to have the temperatures taken and, all everything, any and everything. If a phone call was made, this, that, and the third, and none of that is put in the records that I have. So some of the records are still missing, but I have a majority of them, enough to say that my daughter was still living. And I also agree with you that some things that are in black and white you can't deny, but the hospital just wants me to go away, and I'm not.
That's right.
Can I say one more thing, Brittany? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I was just going to ask, hopefully in Discovery, you'll find be able to cross-reference any potential adoptions. I think John was alluding to that, but, there's also a lot of times stuff that happens with, forced adoptions or that kind of thing. So it would be very important to know whether, to his point, somebody's walking around with your baby at a grocery store, because if the hospital, mismanaged that, that's going to be incredibly important to know.
I've told John personally, when it's just him and I talking. And I've told the public on camera, there's days that I walk in the store and not even know if I'm looking at my daughter or not. There
That's
are
right.
days that I turn around and just keep staring, looking for the eyes, looking at, just looking, because I truly believe my child is out here. And I truly believe that Dr. K knows something. He knows more. Dr. K had an interaction with me. He wasn't just calling just to call, and he wasn't making a mistake when he called either. He called because he had seen my daughter prior to calling me. You can't call with a prognosis without seeing the patient first. He saw my daughter that day. And I just want to know what happened afterwards.
LaShonda, our hearts go out to you. And we appreciate you for being so open and sharing your story. And we'll be following up, and we are here to support you. John, thank you for joining us today as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.